associated with Windsor Castle all my life. As a boy, I lived quite near. We used to come here for picnics. When the Queen gave me my OBE, it was here. I was here the day of the fire. I was here for the restoration. But this means so much in Philip's life. Amazingly, this is where his grandmother was born in 1863 in the presence of Queen Victoria. His mother was born here in 1885 in the presence of Queen Victoria. His mother's funeral was here in 1969. So although he was a Prince of Greece and Denmark, he was, of course, like Her Majesty, the great-great-grandchild of Queen Victoria. And then it's been very powerful in their lives. They're the first royal couple really to live here as almost their main home since Victoria and Albert. So it was so appropriate that he should die here, overlooking the Eastern Terrace Gardens, which he had laid out. He's ranger, or was ranger of Windsor Great Park for nearly 70 years, as he was also in charge of Sandringham and Balmoral, and he was incredibly innovative in his estate management, in his tree planting. I'm told that the staff working on the Crown Estate here, they feel they worked for him. Many have been here 50 years. They would see him carriage driving. If there was something he didn't like in the estate, they would get a handwritten note the next day. He would go round this estate, actually without escort. The Queen loves it here. Yesterday she drove down to a part of the estate, Frogmore Gardens, with the two dogs, the Dorgie and the Corgi. That's her favourite relaxation. This place, incredibly special, and he was so innovative. I mean, he even created a vineyard here, so that at state banquets you can get English wine.
That's incredible. And as I listen to all of this that you know, I'm curious about what it is that you feel, because you, as a correspondent, traveled with them. You must have had encounters that are rattling around in your own head today.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been looking back and suddenly realised, actually, I knew this great gentleman for 40 years. He was Chancellor of Cambridge University when I was there in the late 1970s. I remember him making an incredible speech to a couple of hundred students, no notes, speaking for about an hour. And it was just before Margaret Thatcher came to power. And he was asked, what will it be like if there's a woman running the country? He said, I rather think a woman has been running the country for the last quarter of a century. The day I graduated in 1979, I was at a drinks reception and I was talking to him, Mother Teresa, and the Tory politician, Conservative politician, Rad Butler, former Deputy Prime Minister of this country. Butler said to Edinburgh, this young man, Wesley KERR, wants to be Prime Minister of Jamaica. The Duke said, why on earth would you want to do something like that? And in fact, I think it was probably quite good career advice. I became a journalist instead, and actually later did a marvellous tour of the Caribbean with the Queen and the Duke, a 3-week tour in 1994, Guyana, Belize, the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, the Bahamas, Bermuda. So it was like one of these incredible tours, and you saw the energy with which they went about their business. The programme maybe started at 8 in the morning, went on till 11 in the evening. You saw how incredibly fond they were of each other, how dependent they were on each other. Amazingly little security in those days. She had one policeman, he had a policeman, and there was a spare. They relied entirely on the security forces of the various Commonwealth countries and realms. They were her realms, and she relied on the security available and just incredible. All the politicians said she's known all the prime ministers of this country. I remember Michael Manley saying to me in Jamaica, they're impressed at her knowledge, her desire to do walkabouts and communicate, but it was a marvellous sort of companionship. There was one moment in Bermuda where I was actually alone with them. I was sending my dispatch back to London from the governor's desk in Bermuda, and I became aware that there was a presence through the open door, and suddenly these two heads came round it waving, as though they were like taking applause for the report I'd said. It was the Queen and the Duke waving, and then they went upstairs. That she became very interested in my family. I remember her saying, when we were in Jamaica, saying to me, Did you see your father, Mr. KERR? And I told her, yes, I had. And then she said, and did he see me? So I love the idea that she wanted to feel, and Philip wanted to feel, that the incredible work they were doing was rewarded. And I think in Canada you would have had the same feeling on the many visits they made there. And I think they made 23 visits together, starting in 1951, when they were the Edinburghs. And I think over 60 visits the Duke made. It's just astonishing. So I think that Canada was extremely close to their hearts, as it had been to the Queen's parents. You know, the famous tour before before the Second World War. So I think that the Commonwealth, I think if there's one memorial to the work, I mean, yes, say places like this, it's the trees and the forests and the environment and the work with the World Wildlife Fund, the Duke of Edinburgh's award. But I think one thing which was their real passion project internationally was this free association of nations, which turned possibly the bad of empire into something incredibly positive. And in fact, there's an environmental aspect of that, because the Queen has this project, the Queen's Commonwealth Canopy, which is to restore forests, to plant trees. All over Canada, as in so many other Commonwealth countries, there are trees planted by the Queen and the Duke, whether it's Rideau Hall or on anywhere really, Ontario, Vancouver, wherever there's a governor's mansion or something, that you will find that there are trees on these many visits planted by the royals. So that's a rather good memorial to them.
Absolutely.
But there's so much that this man did, it's hard to know where to stop.
Indeed, and Wesley KERR, I have to say, your stories and your experiences are extraordinary. Thank you so much for sharing them with us today.
Well, I think he was a very remarkable man. I mean, he was born a prince, married a princess, but made himself into a great man, and I think we remember that great man today.
Indeed. Thank you, Wesley.